trying to find the special conditions which are supposed to be B before you get to general conditions of the contract. There is no special conditions. I don't know why. Now, so I'm trying to understand. Without backed information, backed documentation, we will just be going around circles. We have retained the permanent secretaries here for failure to attach appendix or appendices that will speak to what they are talking about or the argument, for simple reasons. In this case, we are saying the Minister of Agriculture procured, running, Madam, actually, when you say from 2020 to 2022 you are trying to test, you are not trying to test. You have been doing this thing for over 4 years, 5 years now. From 2018, the contracts that are given to us, Chair, is 2020. From 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, they have been doing these things where they are just procuring without, they just single source, you pick whoever you want or you feel like should be. You give them the opportunity. So it's not that you are making trials from 2020. You have been doing it from 2018, maybe even beyond. Now the question which we are asking here is, if you are telling this committee that they were actually supposed to be reviews. In this case, when we look at your documentation, when we look controlling officer, when we look at this ministry, we are seeing a lot of loopholes, a lot of gray areas, non-performance of some of the companies that you are, because it's backed by the statistics that you have given us here. So we are asking, where is the review to make sure that you proceed with these companies in the second year? Where are those reviews? We want documentation. I think what is missing from the Ministry of Agriculture is the documentation. The people that were sitting at the ministry that formed up the Ministry of Procurement Committee should be able to explain. We want the minutes. Where are the minutes that we talked about yesterday that spoke to the issues of allowing the director agribusiness to go and put up a system or to make agreements on $1,000 per metric ton, which decision was actually even not adhered to, because they ended up procuring beyond 1,000, which was agreed. So there must have been negotiation terms. Where are those things? Those are the documents that we want. If those documents are there, Chair, then it makes our work easy, because we'll be able to see, okay, this is the decision that was made. And that will be able to inform us. And those people that sat, those are the people that we want to talk to. I submit, Chair.
Thank you. Honorable Daka.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. Of course, to the former procurement officer or through PS. You are making us to understand that there was a review. Based on what? Because we can see already from table 10 of your submission that there were companies that defaulted. Up to now, you are still pursuing those companies. And in fact, the PS yesterday confessed that they were even pleading to the suppliers. I mean, that's what motivates this committee to request that where was the review report? Where is the report? Actually, we would want to have a look at the report that justified the reactivation of the contracts to go into the second year. And that's why we've been asking these questions, that why 2 years? Because there has to be some, you have to back up your decision to compel you, that compelled you to go into the second year. Where is the report? Where is the review report? So that we can appreciate it. This committee doesn't rely on speculations. We rely on facts. Can you lay facts on the table so that we can appreciate the decisions that we made? I submit, Madam Chair.
Thank you. PS, you can respond to the questions. I would allow PS to respond because the submission made by the former head, she said that as a procurement department, they don't make decisions. They're just instructed when the decision is made. So maybe PS can help us to respond to those questions.
Thank you, Chair. The head procurement, the former head procurement in the ministry, is correct. Normally, procurement and supplies unit only receive requests from the user departments. And we have the person who was the coordinator at the time, who I believe was a key advisor to the office of the PS then, to maybe generate that type of information, which he could have gone to the head procurement. And Mr. Male is here, I think.
Where's Mr. Male? You can sit.
Yeah.
Mr. Male, you listened to the questions and you understand them? You can have, okay. Honorable Mfaladi, you can phrase your questions, and Honorable Daka.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. The former coordinator, just for guidance, Chair, the former coordinator was also the director.
PS.
The mic?
Yes.
Yes, yeah, and no, Honorable Chair, the coordinator is different. It's unfortunate, I did mention yesterday that the person who was director at the time is since passed on. So we got, at the time, the contracts were already signed. We then had the new director, who was not part to it. So even if we called him, we wouldn't have been. So that's why we called the coordinator. That person who came as a coordinator, as a director of agribusiness, only came in after the contracts had been signed. He's the current PS at Ministry of Commerce, Trade and Industry.
But Mr. Mare was part of the team.
Who was the coordinator of the program, FISIP.
So you can go ahead with your question, Honorable. Is the right person?
Yes, Chair. The questions that we are trying to get on from the ministry here is actually based on a decision. Regardless of the contracts being signed and the agribusiness director then having passed on, the question that seeks answers is the issue of review. In this case, after they signed the contracts, were there any reviews? That's what we would want to know, the coordinator. Where are the reviews that you made after the contracts were signed, even after the officer who was there, or the director who was there, may her soul rest in peace, when she left? There must have been a review after 1 year. So where are those reviews? And that's what we are looking for, Chair. We are looking for the reviews that they made to see the performance of these companies that they engaged. Where are those reviews?
Honorable Daka, your question, your area question, just phrase it. That's the same one?
Yes, the same one.
Okay. Okay. Mr. Mwale, can respond to the question.
Thank you, Chair. I'm aware that the contracts were renewed, or I think the term that was being used was reactivated for the second season. But I can't recall of the actual review, what review was done. I think it's, as far as my memory serves me, I think it was something that was carried forward. I think based on I think the explanation that has already been given, that these contracts were actually signed for 2 years. And I think when the second term came, there was just that reactivation of the contracts. I'm not aware if there's some document that will refer to that review that was undertaken. I think that's what I can say, Chair.
Honorable Mfaladi.
I think this ministry is showing a lot of failures in their system. You signed a contract as a ministry. You signed a contract that these companies will be able to give us fertilizers. And based on the arguments that you are putting before this committee, you have said you were actually even looking at the performance of these companies. You as a coordinator, Mr. Mwale, you were a coordinator at that time of FISIP. Did you visit any warehouse where you found fertilizer for Rockcliffe? Hello, sir? Did you visit as Minister of Agriculture? Did you as coordinator, did you see any fertilizer for Rockcliffe stacked somewhere, showing you that there is available fertilizer and you gave them the contract? Because this is what you are saying in your submission here. Did you visit those warehouses? If you visited those warehouses, the other question we are asking you, did you evaluate their performance as they went on? I know that recently the current PS was on air where he was reviewing and he was looking at the performance of some of these people that he has given the contract to supply. So if those, and I expect even those who were there to have reviewed the time you gave out these, were you reviewing these companies to see their performance? Because we are still even going to the performance where you see that 34% Rockcliffe and these, they could not even meet their target. Yet you are saying they had the fertilizer in stock. So did you visit? And if you visited, where are the reports?
Mr. Mwale, through the PS, you can respond to the question.
Thank you, Chair. I think I do, as far as I can recall, I think there was, I remember at that point, I think the Honorable Minister then and the PS conducting some visits to these suppliers. What I cannot commit here is that there was a formal review with a report. I think that's the thing that I'm trying to. But I do recall some visits that were done to the warehouses that are within Osaka by the Honorable Minister and the PS. Thank you, Chair.
Honorable PS, I want to ask a question. Looking at Ministry of Agriculture is one of the strategic and very important ministry in this country. But what I've identified is that your paper trail is poor. Because what we need to do is that even if you are a new PS, you are supposed to have information on your table. But the responses we are receiving is that you don't have the information. So how are we going to work as a government with such a ministry and such the type of staff in the ministry, managing the most important ministry? PS.
Thank you, Chair. I do agree with you that paper trail, yes, is there, and I'm very sure we have recognized that, and that is why I can only speak for the current, where we are, where we have taken a cue from the past that we have started doing things differently. I think we are looking at having contract managers properly appointed, and then the due diligence that Honorable Faradi is referring to being done. And however, the difficulty part with the due diligence with the fertilizer suppliers in this country, when you do the due diligence, and this has been in the past and even in the current, at present, when you wanted to, we are calling it due diligences, but basically it's just going to the suppliers where they claim they have their warehouses. You visit them. The first, let's say, company, the supplier A, you visit them, they'll point at a warehouse, and you count, yes, they have both the urea and compound D and urea, and you record, these are good. Then the next thing, you go to supplier B, you can go up to 6, 7, 8 suppliers. They'll be showing you warehouses, and based on that, you make a decision. When the actual supply starts, when you have now entered into a contract, this we came to learn this year. You start discovering that actually a lot of these places that you were being, the teams that you set up to go and inspect or do the due diligence, where they were being taken to, do not actually belong to these companies. So you find probably another maybe reputable supplier who may not be participating, calling you and saying, oh, by the way, that company you offered the contract is here, asking for fertilizer from me. Now, this is very common. So there could be a problem here, either with the way the due diligence was conducted and probably is conducted, because the results of the due diligence or the inspections does not really give any comfort to the contracting party that they will have those goods which they have been shown. They may not be there. So that's what I can say. So going forward, we have not only ended at doing the original due diligence. What happens is even after you sign the contract, you continue visiting this supplier so that you ensure that indeed these fertilizers which you were shown are there. If they are not there, then you must push for where are we going to get the fertilizer that you had there. Yes.
Let's find out from the former coordinator and procurement head. How were you doing your assessments to assess these companies? Were you going on the ground? Because what you are giving us is a situation where you are saying the permanent secretary and the minister visited some warehouses, which to me, it had nothing to do with procurement, because the two they have no capacity to start assessing a company and say, okay, the quantities are like this and so forth. That is done by you, the technocrats. The people that are down, the PS. So can you tell this committee how you used to do it? Were there any security checks? Were there any paperwork that was done to assess the numbers, or you put the company and so forth? Moreover, Chair, if what the PS is telling us is true, then these companies that they have been contracting and they are lying to a public officer, they are supposed to be prosecuted, or they are even supposed to be disqualified immediately, because they are misleading. So why do we have companies that are misleading, and then they are even given the contracts to proceed and procure, even when the person where they went and misled you informs you, say, these people are doing. Now, but first, before we get there, we want to know, how were you doing it? Was there any security check being done for these companies or not? I submit, Chair.
Okay. Mr. Mwale, through the PS. Maybe before you respond, looking at the submission from the PS, I'm getting worried, because Ministry of Agriculture is part of government. For someone to take you to a long place, because we are supposed to have that information from the background check, then we are worried as a country. Yeah. Mr. Mwale, you can respond? Okay, PS.
At times, it's not necessarily the wrong place, because the due diligence does not, in fact, give assurance to the supplier that you have given them a contract to supply. So they are in the market for business. After you have visited, the process of contracting suppliers takes a long, long time. And during that period, there is a lot of uncertainty on the side of the supplier, and they will sell what they have to anybody who comes with money. So at times, it is a question of, by the time you are now making a decision to sign a contract, what you were shown at due diligence is no longer there. So it's not always the case. Yes, it's a mixture of these factors, but it's not always that they are liars. There are times they actually tell you the truth. It's just that by the time you're signing a contract, the goods have moved.
Maybe let's allow Mr. Mwale to respond. Mr. Mwale can respond through the PS.
Chair, I think, like I said earlier on, the exercise that was carried out to counter-check was what was the program for the minister and the PS. I think, as far as I can recall, I think the main the justification that was there to activate these contracts was just based on what had happened in the previous season, in the first part of the contract. Because in the first year of the contract, we did not have any cases of what was not delivered. We didn't have those cases. So there was no basis upon which to say they have failed, these companies have failed. So the only other way to check was just to physically check what was actually in the warehouses. And as the PS has alluded to that fact, yes, you can go and have a look at what is in the warehouse. But
Honorable Mfalai.
A point of order, Chair. I think we are joking here, and we are not serious. You cannot tell me, former coordinator, that you were basing your judgment and whatever without any document. We'll give an example. Can we, the Chair, I've heard there is PACOS somewhere there. Let's pick Central Province. So Central Province never gave you reports to show how much has been delivered coming to your office as a FISIP coordinator. That's what you're telling this committee. That you never had received any reports that were coming from the provinces where you were supplying these things, the stock, and then you were just saying, okay, these things have been done, we are proceeding and giving this contract next time. Are you telling this committee that there were no reports from the provinces or from the districts to feed into the provinces? The provinces feed into the nation. Is that what you're telling this committee? Let's not start joking here.
Honorable Daka.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. PS, your decision was anchored on the time constraint, the availability of fertilizer on the market, and past performance. We are going by your submission to award a 2-year contract using a direct bidding system. So now, you are making us to understand, the coordinator, the former coordinator here is saying, in the first year, there were no defaults. Basically, all suppliers performed to the satisfaction of the client. And yet here we are talking about a 2-year contract. So you are assessing capacity for someone to deliver for 2 consecutive seasons. So the issue of saying the second season, this is when you experience a lot of underperformances according to table 10, doesn't arise. There's no way it can arise, because I'm looking at the performance indicators here, where there were delays of 24 weeks, 26 weeks, 28 weeks, in that range. So based on what did you conduct your assessment to pick on these suppliers? That's what we're trying to find out as a committee. And it's quite laughable, PS, to hear you to say that you didn't have the capacity to ascertain the abilities of these suppliers, because that's what we're trying to admit here. Madam Chairperson, I think I can let me give an opportunity for other members to ask questions.
PS, you can respond to the questions. You know, we are not receiving responses. So may PS help us respond. You are the controlling officer of the ministry.
Chair, I think I did try to explain yesterday that I'm a controlling officer, yes, and according to the current government regulations, I'm answerable even things which happened before I got there. What I'm explaining is I'm explaining the reasons what could have been there, why a contract for 2 years was signed in 2020 to run up to 2022. So what we are answering here, what the issues we are looking at, are those things happened from a contract which was entered into in 2020, ran for 2020-2021 season, and then from what we are hearing now, there was the performance appraisal which was okay, and then it reactivated to run for 2021-2022. So I don't think really it's an issue which I can add anything other than what we have said, because basically that's how the facts are.
Okay, let's progress. Honorable members, we are going around the same responses, so we can go to question about allocation of fertilizer. The committee will come up with a position on the issue. That's page 7.
Recording in progress.
Honorable Mfalali. You have no question? Ask. Ask, they will respond.
I think the question that arises on question about allocation of fertilizers. PS, you have indicated that instead of lots, you were, what method were you using here, if anything? Okay, transparency on the way you were allocating the quantities. What were you basing these allocations for these quantities on fertilizer and on the seed? Contrary to Article 210 of the Constitution, 210(1) of the Constitution Act number 2 of 2016, there is no basis that shows why you had to give Neria, why you had to give Nyimba, Zambian fertilizer, Alpha, nitrogen chemicals, Rockcliffe. What was informing you to allocate these quantities in this fashion? I submit, Chair.
Any questions, members? PS, you can respond to that question.
Chair, I would not want to depart from the answer that we gave. The issues that were raised was at the time, there was no single supplier who had all the quantities required maybe for each district or province. So I think the allocations were being done as and when the quantities that were found with each supplier. But again, at the time, I think the coordinator was there. Maybe he could add value to the question that we provided in the write-up.
The same, Mr. Mare?
Yes, please.
Well, Mr. Mare can respond to that question through the PS.
Thank you, Chair. I think, Chair, this issue, I think it's very similar to what we're deliberating on. I think this was an issue of previous performance by these companies. The fact that they had participated on the program and had delivered to the satisfaction of the ministry. I think it was based on that these companies were being contracted and given these quantities. Thank you, Chair.
Honorable Mfarad.
Chair, if these quantities, if you look at the quantities, you will realize that the quantities for some companies kept on increasing. Others kept on, they were coming down. Now, the former coordinator, we want to know, and please answer questions. I think you were the ones saving this nation in that capacity as coordinator. What was informing you? Where are the reports to show the performance of these companies? Because you could not be doing it just based on nothing or nowhere. Is there a file that looks at the reviews, performance review of these organizations or companies from 2018 to 2022? Do you have a file at the ministry that speaks to the performance of companies that you engage or you contract? Is there a file at your ministry?
Honorable Kiri, you have a question? Yeah.
It's just an addition, Chair. I wanted to find out from the controlling officer if you have a report showing the suppliers at that time as to how much they had in terms of the commodity. Do you have a report showing how much the suppliers had? Thank you.
PS, you can respond.
Thank you, Chair. There was no report which actually indicated, like I've said before, what quantities were with each supplier before these contracts were entered into.
We progress. They are not
I
giving
think
us
I've asked a
answers.
question. Can the coordinator who was sitting
Mr.
there,
Mwale, can you respond to the question?
is there a file? I'm not looking for reports. Is there a file that speaks to reports about these transactions or performance appraisals?
They don't have. The PS has responded. The PS is at the ministry.
Let's not give people space to start maneuvering. Can he tell us whether there is a file that speaks to reports, annual reports, performance of the contracts that are given to these fertilizer suppliers? Is there a file?
Mr. Mwale, can you respond to the question?
Thank you, Chair. I'm not in a position to say whether there's a file or not. As you are aware, I'm no longer working at the ministry. But I just wanted to speak to one issue based on what the query is talking about. I think Honorable Mfarari addressed an issue of how these numbers were derived. I just want to give an example of one.
No.
Just as an example, I cannot remember everything. Chair, sorry.
Honorable Mfarari.
I've not asked for any other thing. I've asked for a file. Did you have a file when you were serving at that ministry, or you didn't have a file?
Mr. Mwale.
Reports on deliveries of inputs are generated from the provinces, and every province they were doing, even now I think so, they're also doing annual reports. So in terms of how each company is performing, there are reports, the annual reports that are generated through the PACO's offices. So the PACO's are here, they can refer.
My question is simple. Do you have a file at the ministry, or you don't have a file where you put reports? Is it there or it's not there? When the time you were there, was there a file on FISIP? Is there a file on the performance? Is there that file there or not?
Honorable Dak.
Maybe
Okay, you can intervene, PS.
Just that question Honorable Mfarari is asking, there are several files on the Farmer Input Support Program where a number of subject matters are filed. But just if I could just be allowed to add, we were trying to look at the criteria and probably find that criteria filed somewhere. That's the one I responded to, that we do not seem to have had any criteria to show how these allocations were done.
Honorable Mfarari, because he is a controlling officer, he has everything in his hands, and he has responded. The coordinator will not give us anything. The position of the controlling officer should be the face of the ministry. So we can't continue asking a question. They haven't given us answers.
Yeah. What I'm coming to, I knew why I was asking that question. And if that is being confirmed by the controlling officer, as you are putting it as chair there, that there are no files or then even the statistics they are giving us on this performance, and it's all based on nothing. So we are not dealing with real things here. We are dealing with fictitious issues. So there's nothing to sit here for. Because the facts are not there. Then where are they getting these facts from? While we come and sit here and say, no, we are looking at you. It's baseless.
Honorable Dak.
Madam Chairperson, I was proposing that we make progress, and the committee will have a position on this matter. It's very clear. We are not getting appropriate responses from our witness. So I think in the interest of progress, then we need to progress.
Yeah, we got
in the interest of progress, let's make progress. Let's go to the next.
So we can go to the next question. Sorry? Honorable, we collapsed the quorum. You've collapsed the quorum. We had just